What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another live episode of Dynasty Theory. I'm John Bauer. Find me on X at the Bauer Club. We got Dan Lamagna at Coach Dan Dynasty. Still getting used to that one, Dan. And as you can see, if you are watching on YouTube, Mitch is not on tonight. He did get called into work. What do we say, Dan? He is essential to the state of Utah.
Yes, he is, man. He's digging a hole, literally. And unfortunately, he can't be with us. But you and I, buddy, we're ready to step up tonight. The chat is already fire over there, man. Like, I don't know if you're JB. And when I used to play high school football, I used to love to run out of those signs to like start the game. That's how how the chat has me feeling right now. Just so you know.
Yeah, we have a lot we want to talk about tonight. And as you can tell from the episode title, you're probably thinking post-draft winners. The draft was almost 3 weeks ago. What are we doing here, guys? And we wanted to let the dust settle. The last few weeks, we really focused on rookies. And now we're going to be opening it up, talking about some veterans. And not just what happened in the NFL draft itself, but there have been some trades. There have been some retirements. So those are some things that have impacted dynasty values as well as expected production here in 2025. Now, I want to give a little disclaimer here. You see on the screen, Dak and Pickens. I chose this topic. This was not one that Dan the Homer chose to talk about. But if you have been listening to Dynasty Theory, I think we're going on 6 years now, Dan. You know that I have been quite high on Dak. You always say I'm a closeted Cowboys fan. But George Pickens leaving my Pittsburgh Steelers, going to your Dallas Cowboys. Let's look at it from the Dak perspective. I mean, it has to be good, right? It's got to be.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we've seen this kind of play out in Dallas before. You know, we flash back to the Amari Cooper trade years ago. Boy, when Dallas had Lamb entering his prime and Cooper as a 1-2 punch, man, Dak put up some really nice stats. And then the team is always better when the number 2 is good. We've had like little tiny like teasers of Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks, but we've seen the stats recently in recent weeks since Pickens been traded. I mean, Georgia's stats are eons over the Brandon Cooks times in Dallas. So this should open up, more for CeeDee Lamb to eat, so he's not getting double covered. A healthy Ferguson this year at tight end should open up a little bit, and Pickens as that deep threat and a guy who's entering his prime. As long as that head's on tight, this is really good for Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and before we get into trades involving Dak Prescott, I don't think the market really has necessarily shifted since the news broke over the last few days. But one interesting thing is George Pickens, he is entering the last year of his rookie deal. We can't assume that he is going to get extended and stay in Dallas. So while there is that uptick and the perceived value bump here right off the bat for Dak Prescott, when you look at 2025 production and expectations, we don't know if that's going to be short-lived. We don't know if, like I said, if he is going to be extended, he being George Pickens. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic there. And George Pickens, like, he has risen a little bit from a value perspective. I'm still seeing a lot of trades, Dan, where I'm kind of raising my eyebrows, like, that's going through now. I could see if he were still in Pittsburgh with DK Metcalf in the quarterback situation. But now he gets to play with the best quarterback he's ever played with. And you have a true number 1 that can take a lot of pressure off of him. So when you're looking at George Pickens, take off your Dallas Cowboys glasses for a minute. His value has risen for you, correct?
It's definitely risen for me, but to the point where I'm not getting him. All right, JB, it was literally 24 hours before that Pickens trade. I've been trying to trade Pickens because I'm a former Georgia Bulldog fan. I've been high on Pickens in the past, but I've been trying to unload my Pickens shares all offseason to no avail. Like, people did not want to touch him. And then all of a sudden this Dallas trade happens, and I went to try to get some Pickens shares back. I'm like, I'll hop on the train a little bit, but it's just outpriced itself for me because you mentioned it, JB. They may not re-sign him, and there is some baggage that we have to be concerned about. So I think you have to be careful not to overpay.
Before we get into some of the George Pickens trades, Matt, we appreciate you, man. one quarterback start 8. I traded 102, my 28 first. Oh my goodness, 28 first.
Whew.
We might not even be here by then. And Roman Wilson for the 101 and 301. Yeah, I'm good with it. Like, I don't need more team context. Like 28 first. Like, you're kicking the can that far down the road. Hopefully, for the sake of the league, it's still going on. Everybody's paid ahead. You're paid ahead, Matt. But one quarterback start 8. I'm not worried about depth. I'm not worried about the year 2028. Give me Ashton Genty, and I love Amar in Hampton.
Yeah, I see what he's doing there, man. That Bijan and Genty looks pretty sweet together, and he's got a good supporting cast around it, so he could afford to move that capital.
Yeah, and it's a start 8. You have Jaden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. It's a one quarterback league, so you're set. Bijan, Genty, Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Rice. I would like to see that tight end room of Strange and Likely bolstered a little bit, but yeah, that's a nice core there, especially in a start 8. So David Montgomery and George Pickens, or shall I say David Montgomery for George Pickens, Dan, where are you on this one?
Man, wide receiver youth there, that's a no-brainer Pickens for me. I like Monty, but he's coming off an injury and he's not getting any younger.
Yeah. As you could just see on my screen, I'm pulling up my tiers off the screen here, but David Montgomery, and I'm very pro David Montgomery, but I have him right around that 202 mark if we're looking at it strictly from rookie picks this year. And then George Pickens, it looks like he's up to wide receiver 26 on Fantasy Calc. So he has gone up a little bit, but like these prices here, I'm not, it's puzzling. This is an interesting one. So we saw the 1-for-1 swap cross positionally. I'm also on the Pickens train. Dan, 12-team Superflex start 10 half PPR, Saquon Barkley or George Pickens, the 112 and the 202.
And this is like prime Barkley right now, where he's in that, really high scoring running back realm. That half point PPR, JB, Pickens isn't exciting me enough, and those picks are just a little too late. So I'll go Saquon.
Does that change at all if it would elevate up to like a start 11?
Then depth becomes a factor where it's more important, but I'd really like it to be full PPR to be excited about Pickens.
Okay, that's fair. And then this is where we see the range here. And anytime we have breaking news here, George Pickens being traded, obviously, you see such a wide range of values. George Pickens for the 212 and the 312. This is like, I was not a pro Pickens guy when he was in Pittsburgh. A lot of P's there. But I wouldn't have sold at that price when he was here.
Right? I'm running to the ATM for that trade, JP.
And then we have Pickens for a second, a third, and 207. Still Pickens for me. Pickens for Leggett in a third. Pickens.
We're just not in those leagues, JB. There's just no way. And you're in like 100 leagues, and I know you're not in any of those leagues. Man.
And I always, it gets me a little bit. It grinds my gears, Dan. You made a comment there where people say, well, that's never going to happen in my leagues. Yes, but it's happening somewhere. And even in the best of leagues, we still see these ones that we kind of look at and we're like, hey, or we drop it in the DD Fantasy Discord and we're like, hey, like this trade just went through. Am I completely off here? Or does this look a little to you? But I think here, Eskimo says, can't get anything for Leggett anywhere. How is that happening? Tony, thanks, Dan. No problem. What was that? Oh, really quick, Dan. Would you trade Bucky and DK for London in a second?
I would not. And we saw this to open the show there in the chat. London's obviously more appealing and better than DK, but we're not out on DK. He's good, and Bucky's very good. So that 2-for-1, that second just doesn't carry enough weight.
I'm there too. Yep, that's what we're looking at there, Tony. Pickens 27 first, 27 second for the 102 in a 12-team start 10 full PPR.
So I'm guessing this is Travis Hunter here at 102, who I do like a lot more.
Don't neglect Pickens. My guy Amarian. What you're guessing? I know Travis Hunter.
My strategy is just it's opposite, but okay. So it's Hampton or Hunter, depending on which way you want to go. 27, JB. That's a while from now. I think I'd rather the instant splash of a rookie, whether it be Hampton or my guy Hunter.
All right. And then last one here before we get over to Dak. Geist says Pickens or Addison.
Let me look at my rankings here. I've got them right next to each other, literally. And I do have Addison before Pickens by one slot. But Pickens is all the hype right now. And I think more people would probably side with Pickens.
I have them in the same tier as well, but not to give a cop-out answer. I will go Pickens because I do believe there is, to echo Dan's sentiment there is going to be a little bit more of a market right now. Try to move Jordan Addison. It can be pretty tough. Right. It certainly can. So Dak Prescott, I mentioned, we're not seeing that many trades where the value has changed significantly. Again, he's a 31-year-old quarterback. The mobility has gone a little bit. He's going to have to be a volume-based, efficient quarterback to get into that top 12 production range. So when we're looking at this, 12 teams start 10, Jalen Milroe in a 27 first, or Dak Prescott and Travis Etienne.
To me, it's a smash Dak and Etienne there. Milroe's a third, fourth round gamble right now in this year's draft.
This is an interesting one for me. Drake May and Jordan Whittington. It's 12 teams, start 11, full PPR. Or Dak Prescott, Tyreek Hill, Aaron Jones. Do you want the guys that are most likely going to be dying on your roster and getting the production? Or do you want who Mitch would most likely take? We didn't forget about you, Mitch, in Drake May.
My guess is probably like a win-win in this type league, where if you want to win now, start 11. I'm taking the package there because I think you're still going to get plenty good years out of Dak, and I'll take what I can out of Tyreek and Aaron now. But if you're long-term, you want Drake May.
This one right here, this seems to really be in line with the market. Dak Prescott for the 109, 12-team Superflex.
I think a big thing there is, now it's only half PPR, JB. Like in tight end premium, I like a 109 this year. But if it's not tight end premium, that 109 weakens a lot. So if it's half PPR here, it's probably, I'm guessing, maybe like a 1.5 PPR for tight ends.
No. There's no tight end premium.
Not even a tight end premium? Yeah, that's weak sauce there. That 109 really weakens without the tight end premium. Oh, yeah, I see little category. My bad.
It's okay. We've only been doing this for almost 300 episodes. It's all right. You'll get it one day, Dan. You'll get it. I always ask that question whenever people drop it in the Discord. They have a trade question involving the 109, 110, 111, 112. And that's one of the first questions. What's the tight end premium? Is there a tight end premium? Because the value of those picks, it certainly adjusts based on that. And I don't want to get into the whole tight end conversation, especially the ranges of the tight end premium that we always discuss, because I know that people, they really feel strongly one way or the other. So I don't want to make that a conversation here tonight. Hey, there's a lot of folks out there watching right now. If you're watching live, if you're listening back, if you're watching back on YouTube, hit that like button below for us. And then if you want to check out more DD Fantasy Football content, the tiers, War Machine, Trinity Toll, go over to ddfantasyfootball.com, use code Theory, check it out, 50% off your first month. All right, Dan, let's see here. We'll get into this one a little bit later because we are going to discuss CJ Stroud as well. Dak Prescott we call it a random 26 first, but no 26 first is truly random. But for the sake of this conversation, let's say mid. 12 teams start 10, half PPR, half point tight end premium.
I'm Dak again, man. I think it really feels like people are too much in a hurry to move Dak. There has been some injury things in the last, few years that are a little bit concerning. I don't want to see him age quicker than his time, but he looks in outstanding shape coming off of that injury, and Dallas has got a good team. So I'm Dak easy there.
This one, Terry McLaurin, Bryce Young in a 27 first for Nico Collins and Dak Prescott. The disrespect to Nico and Dak here, it hurts me.
That could and should be a lot of points in Texas there between Dak and Nico. I mean, I like McLaurin. Bryce is a little bit of an uptick, and the future first is nice, but I just can't give up that much potential scoring.
Yeah. As we typically do, we like to look for different players to discuss each and every week. And I always go back and I talk to Dan and Mitch behind the scenes. I'm like, let me see if we've talked about this player. And Dak, he isn't one that we've talked about recently. But again, if you've been listening, if you have access to my cross-positional tiers at ddfantasyfootball.com within the Discord community, that mother trucker has been in green for I couldn't tell you how long, a guy I've been looking to buy. And all of these prices, like Dak for 112, Dak for 108, like the 108 I could see, but Dak, especially in a +6 scoring league, I wish that we had the one more category here that would say how many points are awarded for a passing touchdown. But if it's +6, especially, like these are all no-brainers for me. And anything else here on Dak before we move on?
I think of the Dak and the Cowboys this year, JB. I know Pickens and Lamb's getting all the hype of the splash, but this is a team that I think are going to take some pressure off of the passing game as they started to figure out the run game late last year, and then they solidify their O-line a little bit more in the first round. They bring in some backs. I just think it's a much better Dallas offense. So hopefully the listeners will get a little bit more for Dak if they are looking to move him. And then JB, if I could just say one thing really quick about those Steelers. I know we're about to switch gears from players, but Mitch isn't here tonight. So I think we get a few extra words in here in this first segment. I look at that Steelers offense now minus Pickens. What are they doing, JB? Like if the Dallas Cowboys did what the Steelers were doing with Mason Rudolph and Prayan Rodgers, who's 41, 42, with a cast of DK, Robert Woods, Calvin Austin, like their coach would be fired. And then you're putting a lot on Caleb Johnson, who I like, and I think that was a great landing spot. But like Najee wasn't terrible. Like you're a Steeler fan, JB. What's going on, man? It's been too long since such a historic franchise has won a playoff game. Again, everyone wants to talk about Dallas, but everyone gives like Coach Tomlin and the Steelers a free pass, and I don't understand that.
I know. Like if the Cowboys were doing what the Steelers are doing right now, it would just be everywhere. It would be discussed constantly. Like the media would just be all over the Cowboys. But it's the Steelers, and it's kind of like, who cares? Like that's the way I kind of take it from a national media perspective. But there's still I'm reading some of these comments. There's still Keenan Allen out there. There's still Amari Cooper out there. But the fact that they haven't looked to do anything, I don't get it. I don't know.
I would imagine the Steelers' local media would be a little bit more critical than the national media. Because normally, like the local media does have a little fantasy spin to it, and they're wondering who a team's going to draft and who they're going to sign. And from a fantasy perspective, like, I mean, we're really not drafting Calvin Austin. There's some people hanging on to Roman Wilson, but that doesn't really excite me. And then even DK is like, he's not the greatest route runner on earth. And I don't know. I'm fantasy concerned in Pittsburgh.
And you should be, but the positive here should be a boost for Freiermuth, a boost for DK Metcalf with Mr. Pickens going out the door here.
JB, it's been a boost for Freiermuth for the last, I don't know how many years now, though.
I know.
It was supposed to be a boost for him last year and the year before, too, and it just doesn't quite seem to materialize.
He's going to be that middle of the tier tight end option. Middle tier tight end option, I should say. He's not going to give you that super high ceiling, especially with an assumed lower touchdown upside in that whole offense. Like just pepper Pat, pepper DK, and then let's mix in the running backs. And I want to see 80% target share to 3 players. Can we do that?
We're going to see what happens there. And I'll throw one more at you. Tell me, is it same or different? And we know the fantasy story of these guys: Juju, Antonio Brown, Chase Claypool. Now it's George Pickens. Now, I think Antonio kind of lost his mind there, but he also had a good year with Tom Brady. He had one good, season there. Juju, I think there were some injuries, maybe. Claypool, I don't know. He had his success with Big Ben, didn't he? Did he have the end of Big Ben Claypool, maybe?
Yeah, and there was like that random game he popped off for 3 touchdowns. I remember one of them was a rushing touchdown. So he
Because you hear a lot of the narrative of,
I
hey,
know.
is Pittsburgh, do they know something about Pickens? Is it, not a good thing in Dallas?
It's between the ears, I think, with Pickens. I don't think I'm not, like I said, I was not a pro Pickens guy whenever he was in Pittsburgh, but the talent is undeniable. Like you can't doubt that. But when you look at the other Antonio Brown, I think there was a lot more going on behind the scenes. And again, I talk about George Pickens between the ears. I think there's a lot going on with Antonio Brown. We saw how things kind of played out, obviously, after he left Pittsburgh. Juju, that decline kind of started to happen already before he left. George Pickens, he is 24 years old. If it weren't for the injury or maybe some character concerns, he was a first round rookie, first round pick in the NFL draft otherwise. And he slips to the one team that really seems to be able to manage these players, especially in the wide receiver room, and get the most out of them. Unfortunately, it didn't mesh well with Justin Fields. And then with Russell Wilson, there was that little stretch. But then once that Bengals game hit last year, where Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson allegedly got into it, and Russ was changing plays, switching runs to passes, and Artie didn't like it. So I think there was a lot more going on there. I really do. I hope we see just a monster season from George Pickens because the talent's there. And it's not just to be selfish with all of my Dak Prescott shares.
I'm with you. There seems to be a lot more meat on the bone. And I hope it's not too monstrous of a season, because one thing we will monitor, and you mentioned, does he re-sign? Dallas has one more rookie to sign from their draft. And then I imagine they've got to figure out how to sign Micah Parsons soon. And then they have questions of, do they re-sign and pay Diggs when he comes back? Duron Bland, whose contract's coming up, their left guard, Tyler Martin. They got some big salaries they got to figure out. So I hope that cap keeps going up, JB.
Yeah, and I see Jacob's comment, if you're trading away a wide receiver in his prime, air quotes, it's a red flag for me. Yeah, but also contract coming up. If they're not going to extend him, why not try to get something in return? But then there were reports that it was a Mike Tomlin thing. It wasn't an Omar Khan thing. It was ultimately Mike Tomlin pushed for him to be traded. So again, I think it's a maturity thing. I think it's an football character issue more than anything.
And I guess that's what I'm asking. And Jacob hits it like the hammer on the head there. And hey, that normally would say character thing all over it. But I'm asking that other question is, what's going on with the Steelers? I mean, 10 wins, 9-9, 12, 8-9, 6 straight, playoff loss for them in the first round. Something's not right in Pittsburgh. So is it a red flag, Jacob, or is there something more going on, but we just keep giving Coach Tomlin a pass? So I'm really watching Pittsburgh closely this year.
I had to switch the graphic back to Dak and Pickens because we were still talking about him, but I was anxious to get to my graphic. Car in the garage. Shuck time.
Here we go.
It is Shuck time. So you look at Tyler Shuck. There was a little bit of hype about him pre-NFL draft. He got the Van Wilder treatment. He was in college for 7 years. What is he going to be? He's 26 now. Going to be 26. But you look at Tyler Shuck, and he's coming in at quarterback 32 on Fantasy Calc for dynasty purposes. There wasn't a lot of excitement about him even before Derek Carr retired. Well, now he's gone. There's apparently going to be a competition between all three quarterbacks there, and we're going to see what Jake Haener, and we're going to see what Rattler can do down there. But my mind is made up here. It's the Tyler Shuck show. But what does that really mean for fantasy purposes? Probably not that high of a ceiling. He's not going to give you the rushing upside, certainly. You could question the weapons there. It's Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Jawan Johnson, still got Kamara come out of the backfield. But the price of Tyler Shuck, it doesn't look like it's adjusted at all. And we didn't want to do like a rookie show again, but because of the news here, Shuck was thrown into it tonight. Dan, where are you? Because I have so many shares of Tyler Shuck. I think I'm at 14% maybe exposure. But again, a lot of that is simply because of where he was going. Like, I wasn't like pounding the table. I need to get Shuck on my rosters.
Yeah, man, and I'm proud of you for having 14%. And I got a couple shares myself, and it was just the quarterback going as late as he was. There's probably one or two leagues that I wish I was a little bit more aggressive, but I just had that uncertainty at the time with Derek Carr, thinking, all right, does he come back in the second half of the season? What it may be. Oh boy, we're getting the Brandon Weeden comparisons there. That's scary. And I think we are all scared of that, and that's what we have to be asking right now. So the good thing for him is Dr. Tyler Shuck. Does he have that much education there? 7 years.
Eskimo says lots of people go to college for 7 years. I think those are called doctors. Anyway.
Hey, what's good to know about him, though, is the draft capital's there. As far as at least, top 50, top 60 pick, I forget exactly what it was. I think it was top 50.
40.
It was a 40, top 40, right? So they invested in this guy. Part of all those years of college is injuries. Injuries, set him back a few times, COVID year, all that happened. But you're getting a more NFL ready quarterback at age 26 that they invested in. But now, like second round successes, we've got Jalen Hurts, Derek Carr. Speaking of him, Drew Brees. I mean, going back, they're far and few between. Is he good enough to be a starting quarterback in a first round quarterback league? Like, it's a super high percentage of the NFL starting quarterbacks are first round quarterbacks. So I'm worried about that, but I think the Saints are going to give him every chance. I think they knew Carr wasn't coming back. So that they took a shot on this kid who Kellen Moore obviously likes to draft him at number 40. I think the question for us in Dynasty, is this going to be beyond 1 year? Is there enough talent with a second round pick to go beyond 1 year?
Yeah, we always look at it and we say, well, first round draft capital in the NFL, it breeds opportunity. You're going to see the field. You're going to get the opportunity. Second round quarterbacks, like, yeah, it's a top 40 pick, but the investment really is not, it's not that much. I mean, teams are going to move on if it's not there. Now, do they let him grow throughout 25, make his mistakes, give him one more shot in 26? I mean, from a salary situation, that makes sense, right? It makes sense to give Shuck, I saw the comment, Shuck around and find out. It gives time for the salary to kind of remedy itself. But then also, like, maybe you bring in another receiver like Kellen Moore. It's his first year on the job here. What can he do down in New Orleans? For me, it ultimately comes down to the price point that he was going. I picked up shares, 211, 212, 302, 303 in 12-team Superflex formats. And the big thing when you're looking to invest at that price, so if you've had a rookie draft, I'm certainly not advocating for at this point going out and spending a first round pick, whether it's 26, 27. We talked about that year 2028, which is light years away. I wouldn't spend any first round pick. We talk about the leash, we talk about the upside, and I just don't know if he's ever going to be above replacement level. But Dan, you've been in this situation before. If push comes to shove, people spend second round picks on stopgap quarterbacks later in the year. Jake Browning was going for second round picks. Now, he was being productive there, whenever he got the opportunity, but that tells you how people are looking to play the quarterback market. I feel like a lot more people are willing to spend draft capital in the season when they see how things are going, if they need a quarterback, as opposed to taking a Tyler Shuck. And really, how much room is there for him to grow from a value perspective? What's the opportunity cost? What are you passing on by taking Shuck in your rookie draft? So it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, you've positioned yourself nice with your 14% shares. To your point, I'm sure on a lot of those rosters, you're not relying on him by any means and can move them later on. Like in Superflex format, people are going to need quarterbacks, whether they need them now or they're going to need them later because of injuries. He is going to be their starter. they're not terrible. I mean, like Kellen Moore is, again, he's a good offensive mind. If Olavi could stay healthy, Rashid Shaheed comes back healthy. He was starting to flash a bit before they signed Cooks for a little bit of speed and depth. That's not a bad offense. And
Yeah,
Kamara.
and I see the comment from Jacob, and this is spot on too. Jacob coming in with some bangers tonight. I think with league dynamics, the seller will always view Shuck higher than the potential buyer. Stalemates are imminent. Be wary of drafting Shuck if your plans to try trading him away. And I think that's a very good point, because the expectation, right? We had that feeling that Shuck was going to get an opportunity. Now, maybe this conversation is all for naught, and Rattler comes in and gets an opportunity, and he's the guy, I don't think that's the case, but we all thought it was a very strong possibility that Derek Carr, maybe he gets surgery, sits out the rest of the year, and we see him in 26 or he's elsewhere. But there was that assumption that Tyler Shuck was going to get an opportunity. Now it's just more clarity, easier path, better opportunity, more likely he gets that chance. But it's just the ceiling, so I've talked about him, where he's going in rookie drafts, my roster construction. So if you have not had a rookie draft yet, if you're a team that's sitting there with like a Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, I don't see a reason to take a player like Tyler Shuck, where he's probably going to end up going maybe in that 205 to 208 range. Now, if I'm a team, let's say I have Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, and that's it, then I'm okay bringing him on as my third quarterback. And it's not with the expectation that I'm going to be able to sell him. If your quarterback market in your league is showing that he's going to slip, despite seemingly being a starting quarterback in the NFL here shortly, I would not do that simply to look to move him. That's one where I'm willing to ride it out and see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm with you. You might catch lightning in a bottle here. Like, they might not be in position to draft another quarterback for a couple of years. We know before the draft even happened, his name was surfacing as a top 2, top 3 quarterback in this class. And it played out that way. He was number 3 quarterback in the class, and he's got himself an opportunity. And for those picking up Rattler and Hainer in leagues, I've been seeing that too. I mean, I guess if it's a deep league and you need backups, maybe. I mean, if I'm the Saints, I would I would sign a veteran to help mentor this kid, but it's definitely Tyler's job unless he really crashes and burns, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah. I mean, what are the realistic ranges of outcomes? Low end quarterback 2 for 2 years, maybe, or, out of the league, maybe him and Derek Carr can start a company together. I don't know. Oh man. Yeah. Hit the like button for us, guys. We would greatly appreciate it. Helps us out, helps the channel out. That whole algorithm thing. Oh man. Okay. Is Tyler Shuck older than Kellen Moore? What's that age difference? It's got to be close, right?
He's creeping up on him.
All right. So Mitch and I last week on Trending Fantasy, we talked about the Luther Burden, the DJ Moore dynamic, kind of the crowded situation. But Dan, you wanted to look at it from the positive side here, and really how much it benefits Caleb Williams.
Man, I'm loving Caleb Williams in this situation here. I mean, it is a scenario where the Bears loaded up and built around the quarterback, and they did it with a bit of a kind of proven track record here. I mean, like Ben Johnson, what he did in Detroit, he is just following that same model. Boost their O-line, which was the number one thing they had to do. And I don't take that for granted. Like, there's a team like the Texans who needs O-line for Stroud, and they're getting rid of guys instead of adding them, or they're relying on some later picks. The Bears says, hey, we're going to spend some money. We're going to shore up that O-line. And this offense that already has weapons, we're going to load up with 2 more. So this is a fantasy dream. Now, the fantasy dream to me is strictly, at least for now, as far as certainty, for Caleb Williams. He's got the line. He's got the tight end. He's got 3 receivers. He's got the offensive coordinator. Like JB, like it doesn't get any better than that. And he's a talented dude. Now the question is, which one of those weapons do we complement him with? And to me, I think that's what we got to flesh out tonight. I think I don't want to be scared away from this Bears offense. I'm just trying to figure out who the dudes are going to be. And right now, my early leaning is Rome Odunze is going to be the odd man out because he wasn't drafted by this coaching staff. And like DJ Moore is still a stud, unless DJ they let go of him in a year or two. That's the only other scenario where maybe they keep Rome. But I feel like Rome's on the way out. I like those thumbs up I got there. That was pretty cool. You see the little bubbles? That's the first time I've seen that on the show. But Luther Burden I love. Colston Loveland I love. So they just drafted 2 studs to go with some good players.
Yeah, I see the comment here. Overpay for Caleb now before he hits Josh Allen's status. You know, like we talk about range of outcomes from a production and a value perspective for Caleb Williams, because he came in to the league such a highly sought after prospect. Just, you know, the Trevor Lawrence kind of discussion where these guys are just generational. Well, in the NFL, generations are very short-lived. It seems like a generation's 2 years. But with Caleb Williams, he has that insulated value that we always talk about. He didn't have a fantastic 2024, but still coming in quarterback 7 on Fantasy Calc, 18th overall. In startups, he's going middle of the second, early second. So there are, I think, a lot of people that are optimistic about him. But then you look at some of the trades, and there is still that opportunity to go out and acquire. So we talk about price points. We did it with Dak, obviously. Very different market. He is obviously 31 years old, kind of settled into what he is for dynasty purposes. But Caleb Williams, he very easily, because that baseline was so high to start with, Dan, he very easily could propel himself back up to a top 5, 6, 7 startup pick a month into the season. You know, the weapons, the coaching, it's all there. There's no excuses now. So first trade up, Dan, 12 teams, start 11, full PPR. Kyron Williams in the 108 for Caleb Williams in the 304.
This is a smash, Caleb, for me there, JB. Like, I just, hey, like Kyron a ton, like the 108 pick in a tight end premium, but superstar quarterback and super flex with all the good that we just talked about. I'm in on Caleb.
Before we move on to more Caleb, could we see Chicago trade for a running back? One of the biggest winners, just strictly from the draft, obviously Caleb Williams, but DeAndre Swift. The expectation was, hey, the Bears are going to bring somebody in. Well, they bring in Kyle Monangai, what was it, 6th round, 7th round, nothing else. And now I see the comment, well, as a Bears fan, it's Chubb, if anything. And you see the workout videos. I know you've seen the workout videos, Dan. Chubb is putting in the work.
Those workout videos alone, I would sign them if I was the Bears. And there's J.K. Dobbins out there as well. I think they're the only things that would make, could kind of dent into this scenario at all in any way for Swift. But either way, it's a 2 running back league in my eyes. And I think if they do sign someone, it just eliminates Roshan Johnson. I think Swift is still pretty good. It's just, Chubb would probably get goal line work, and he'd lose in that area.
All right, next trade up here, Baker. And that was a smash for me too, by the way, the Kyron Williams trade. All right, 12 teams, start 10, full PPR. Caleb Williams, the 312, a 26 second, or Baker Mayfield in a 26 first.
Man, this is a tough one because Baker's always that unsexy kind of pick, but he's another guy that now I don't know what they're doing on defense in Tampa Bay, but that offense, you draft Ibuka to go with Evans and Godwin. He's age 30. There's still some good years in him, and you're getting a first round pick next year. But JB, I still don't want to see Baker on my roster when I could get Caleb Williams. So I'm going to roll the dice here and take Caleb, but say this is a very close trade because statistically Baker, he might even be better than Caleb again this year.
Yeah, especially once you start to incorporate different scoring settings. But with this specific trade, who's to say those picks don't end up very close together? That 26 first and the 26 second. So if you're talking about a 4, 5, 6 pick bump there, spot bump, when you look at Caleb and Baker, I prefer the Caleb side there. Is trading 101 for Caleb too much?
I'm going to say no. And I know like Genti is just like the greatest thing since sliced bread that's come about this year. But realistically, the Raiders, their O-line problems aren't solved. This isn't like Genti going to a powerhouse team. like the Lions were with that, great O-line that Gibbs got to go behind. So I think there's like he's worth the hype and he's incredible, but the Raiders aren't all the way there. So when you could get a super flex in Caleb Williams, I'm going to take Caleb. So to me, I would trade the 101 for Caleb Williams, especially if you need quarterback help.
And if you're contemplating this type of move, the league market, the league dynamic probably dictates that, and you're probably in need of a quarterback. I would lean Caleb here in, let's say, 70-30 split. I actually have Ashton Genty and Caleb Williams tiered together, but I would lean Caleb more often than not. I think Genty is going to be fantastic, but that production / value insulation probably easier to come by when you look at it that way at the running back position. Whereas in a league that we are desperate for potentially elite quarterbacks, I'm going to lean Caleb Williams there.
We're jiving tonight, JB, man. We're agreeing too much. We got to
cut
that out.
I don't like it here. Okay. Oh, my God, this is another smash for me. 12 teams, start 10, full PPR, only half-point tight end premium. Sam Laporta, the 111, and a 26-second. I don't know about you, man, but I am going to be sending some Caleb Williams offers out here tonight.
I was thinking the same thing.
But here's the thing. If I come in at these prices, I'm probably going to get cursed out of the room by a few people. So if you're watching live right now, if you're watching back to this episode, not only should you be hitting the like button for us, I know you're already subscribed, but any of these trades close for you, maybe you could look at the Baker and the 26 first, depending on the range of where that pick is. But like this Laporta trade, the Kyron Williams trade, let me see here. What about this one? Caleb Williams in a 27-second for Michael Penix, Jordan Addison, 26 first, 26 second, 12 teams, start 11, half PPR.
I mean, it's a nice package there. I think it's a fair trade, but I'm going to still take the Caleb side, especially half-point PPR.
And here you go, Geist. You're not the only person that's made the so we got a Caleb for 101. We got a Caleb and Jameson for 101. And I would say the Caleb for 101 straight up swap is probably more in line with market. My guess would be, and maybe this is just wishful thinking, but that Caleb plus Jameson package there, it's going to be a situation where that manager is flush with quarterbacks and they are just hungry for Ashton Genty there. Yep. What about trading Penix and DK for Caleb and a 26 mid-third? DK's production is replaceable. Give me Caleb Williams without a doubt.
Agreed. Smash.
From Keegan, Caleb or Bo Nix straight up?
Oh, Caleb.
I really like Bo Nix. I have more Bo Nix across my dynasty leagues than I do Caleb Williams. Part of that was because of the price point, which I don't think that's going to surprise anybody that I was getting the quarterback that dropped in rookie drafts after my Tyler Shuck conversation. But I also will go Caleb here.
Yeah, I still like the pedigree and the talent more in Caleb than Nix. Again, Nix was exciting last year, but then Chicago does everything they did this offseason. That definitely tilts it in his favor for me.
Patrick here. So I'll answer this question from Jacob. Does Bo have more ADV? I don't think he does. And the ADV, the artificial dynasty value that's discussed constantly over at DD Fantasy Football, especially in the Discord community and in the Heisman chat VC. But you look at this and it's Bo Nix, the baseline of where they were coming into the league. There is always that pre-draft bias, whether it's from a prospect perspective, whether it is from a draft capital standpoint, which obviously is not the conversation here, but I always talk about this with like an Amon-Ra St. Brown or even a Puka Nacua, a Brock Purdy. It takes longer for those guys to get to the value they should be at because of where they were taken. Kind of a tangent there on this conversation.
That's a
But
great question, though. And I always
is.
try to check myself at the door there and make sure I'm not carrying that bias with me, that with Caleb Williams. But that's like, for me, it's a bet on my guys. Like, I was in on Caleb from the beginning, and I like what they're doing.
See, that's it right there. You just proved my point. I'm not saying you're wrong, but you were in on Caleb from the beginning. It is that pre-draft bias. It's that higher baseline. We didn't see Bo Nix start out as a first-round startup pick before seeing the field. We saw him going in the 5th, 6th round of startups, whereas Caleb Williams, he had the higher market overall, and it's that hot new thing right now with Ben Johnson coming in. Sure, things could fall apart very quickly. A lot of people were very hesitant on Bo Nix that first month of the season last year, and we saw how that played out, and things really blossomed there in Denver. But I would say no to the question. That long-winded way, very long-winded way for me of saying no. I think Caleb still has more ADV.
Although I challenge flag you a little bit there with the word bias, because bias is indicating that, like, I have this premonition that's not accurate. Like, I believe he is an elite stud, not just because I liked it before. I like what I see. I think now he has competent offensive coaching and the talent around him that will come through.
Bias does have that negative connotation, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, I felt like I had like a disease or something when you said I had some bias there.
It came down with a bad case of bias. Get my penicillin. Oh my God. Let's see here. Okay. Anything else on Caleb? If you gun to head, if you had to pick, Dan, who leads this team in receiving yards? Not fantasy points, just yards.
I'm still on the DJ Moore train. I'm not off it. Again, I'm just long-term dynasty value. I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's been a little bit of talk of him being traded or not re-signed or whatever the case may be. But he's there now. I think he's just the guy, and I think it's going to take, Luther Burden's still going to develop a bit. I like that they're going to play him in the slot, but DJ Moore for me now. And then Loveland's going to dent into that too.
Who has more dynasty value this time next year? Rome Odunze or Emeka Egbuka?
I think Emeka Egbuka. Tampa Bay receivers are getting older. He's going to be year 2 in the system with Baker. And I think Rome, again, there's this little vibe I get that it's going to be like Luther Burden, Colston Loveland's team over time. And we'll see how long DJ Moore stays with that. I don't know.
This time next year, is Colston Loveland still a top 10 dynasty tight end?
I think so. I think he's at a talent level above everybody else. And like I said, the only concern you have this year is there's just so many mouths to feed. But again, I think that's going to play itself out. I think, it will become more defined, and then injuries happen and those kind of things. What intrigues me about Luther Burden is last year when we watched the Bears and we were, hoping for DJ Moore and we're hoping for Rome, Keenan Allen just kept stealing fantasy value. And then he did that from the slot. And now this offseason, everyone's like, Keenan's washed. He has nothing left in him. And I'm thinking, he kind of looked okay last year. Like, is he really that washed? Now you put a young Luther Burden in there and that slot role in that offense. I'm pretty excited about him.
All right. We saw this last offseason. It was discussed with like Justin Herbert. His value really came down from where it was. And we had talked about, hey, this is probably his floor from a value perspective. He was dropping to the 4th round of startups. I remember this conversation very well. Mitch was really pounding the table saying, hey, the value's it's going to bounce back. Don't worry about it. Tying in CJ Stroud. Is this CJ Stroud's floor that we're looking at? And you're probably thinking he's still valued as a top 10 dynasty quarterback on Fantasy Calc. And I always reference Fantasy Calc because it's based on actual trades that take place. But asterisk, you saw the trades that we pulled up on Dynasty Daddy. So those values are tied into Fantasy Calc, and some of those get a little wonky. He very well might be a top 10 quarterback on KTC, most likely. at this point in time. Does it go any lower, Dan?
I don't think it goes any lower. And I know we talked about him someone maybe on the decline, but there's this little part of me that's more optimistic this year and is, I think, going to kind of hold tough. I love what they did in the draft with wide receiver. We go back to Houston last year and, we're all, singing Stroud's praise, and then it all fell apart. But I think last year was like the perfect storm in the negative. The O-line fell apart. The injuries happened to the receivers. No one could step up there. You go into this offseason, hey, you're hoping now for a full year of healthy Nico. You bring in Christian Kirk, who's going to mentor Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, who I think are two stud rookies. Really was high on both of those guys going in, and they put good draft capital in both of them. And the only thing I'm concerned about, JB, is the O-line. That's still has a lot of questions. Is he still running for his life? But even with a poor O-line last year, they were able to run the ball pretty well, which takes some pressure off. And hopefully these receivers get open more, and Stroud bounces back nice this year. I think if his stock is low right now, similar to Caleb Williams, maybe I throw a few Stroud offers out there in my leagues tonight.
Isn't it interesting how Bobby Slovic was there as the OC, and he was the hottest name out there. He was Ben Johnson, basically, right? He's going to go out. He's going to, after 1 year, people were talking about him going to get a head coaching job. And then just a year removed, he's out of Houston. And like, I saw some conversation in the Discord that maybe the relationship was strained right from the jump between CJ Stroud and Bobby Slovic. But it is interesting how, that took place. And maybe that's a sign of things to come where it's like, okay, CJ Stroud can and will bounce back. Yeah, there's some offensive line questions, but now hopefully we have, a revamped wide receiver room. Tank Dell injured. Who knows if he plays again in 25 or ever. Diggs, he got injured early. So they're planning of having, hey, 3 fantasy producing wide receivers. Really, it went out the door very early. So like, it's interesting to me that the OC situation, the wide receiver situation, the offensive line situation. I'm not saying CJ Stroud, he doesn't have flaws and he didn't make mistakes, but I do think there is going to be room for improvement. But even his rookie year, now I'm kind of playing devil's advocate the other way. It's not like he was putting up out of this world fantasy stats.
No, he put up very good stats, and he put up good enough stats that teams drafted him really late, and he helped win fantasy leagues because of the value you got him in, especially in startups. But he put up good enough. I mean, he looked really nice. Tank Dell had a research, really came into his own. Nico came into his own, and then, like you said, the bottom fell off, and now we have a new offensive coordinator. So is it Houston just figuring things out? They had some bumps in the road, or is this the Houston Texans that always have some dysfunction and can't get over the hump? We'll find out this year, but they told us what they're doing in the draft, and that was build around CJ Stroud in that passing game.
Yeah. And certainly don't sleep on Woody Marks. He's coming for you, Joe. He's coming.
I like
All
the
right.
depth.
12 teams start 10 full PPR. Dak Prescott 103 or CJ Stroud 202 and 26 first.
That's a good trade both ways. I'm going to take the Dak and the 103 because I like 103 is my sweet spot. Probably 104 because I know, again, my 3 this year has been Genty, Hunter, and Cam Ward, although I know Hampton's in most or a lot of people's top 3. So that's a sweet spot in this year's draft. You don't know if you're going to get that with that 26 first. So give me Dak and 103.
And even if we do project a CJ Stroud bounce back, is he really giving you that much more than Dak Prescott on a week-to-week basis? I don't think so. Let's see here. Oh, I like this one. Josh Allen, Cortland Sutton in a 26 fourth. Now this is a 12-team start 12. For T. Higgins, Khalil Shakir, CJ Stroud, Josh Jacobs, and a 26 third. I know it's a start 12, but give me Josh Allen.
Yeah, I figure Sutton and Shakir kind of wash each other out. I don't really care about the 4th and the 3rd. So you're looking at Higgins, Stroud, and Jacobs. That's a lot in a start 12.
It is.
You might really need Higgins and Jacobs. I'm with you, JB, but that's close.
Yeah, even in the start 12, it's not enough for me. And just what Josh Allen gives you, unless we see a massive drop-off or just a huge uptick in production from CJ Stroud, the rest of those pieces, they don't close the gap for me.
Roster construction would be important there.
12 teams, start 10, CJ Stroud, 26 fourth, or Michael Penix, Chris Godwin, in a 26 second.
Only start 10. I have Stroud ranked a lot higher than Penix right now, even though I like Penix, but I'm going to go with the Stroud side.
I always say whenever there's polls in the Discord, I say like the value's probably there, but I would like to see it structured differently. Chris Godwin, he's not the piece. Godwin in a second, they're not the pieces that I would look to bridge this gap. You know, that type of wide receiver. I love Chris Godwin. Does he come back full speed? You know, we know he's going to be in Tampa at least for the next few years, hopefully. But he's going to be 30 years old, and that's not enough to bridge that gap. And yes, I know people are excited about Penix. The value has increased significantly from where he was going in 2024 rookie drafts, but I still got to go with CJ Stroud here. And where we look at, tonight kind of turned into a quarterback show unexpectedly. Mitch gave us the notes, and then he goes, I'm not showing up, but you look at the guys that we've talked about tonight. I'm far more willing, I think, to invest in Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams at their price points than I am on CJ Stroud. And I love this comment by Dave here. There's been an overcorrection on Stroud, in my opinion. If his value would have just stayed if he got up to maybe back end second round startup value, I don't know if we would have, I don't think there would have been such negativity, but people were taking him as a top 3 startup pick. Go back to startups. It was there.
Yep.
102 Khalil Shakir, and that's it. So 102 and Khalil Shakir, or CJ Stroud and Stephon Diggs, 12 team start, 10 full PPR.
So we'll assume Gente's off the table there. And at 102, I'd rather CJ Stroud than, as much as I love Travis Hunter, I'd rather CJ Stroud than Hampton, and I'd rather CJ Stroud than Cam Ward. So give me the Stroud side.
Yeah, when we're looking at quarterbacks against this class, I would take Drake May over the 102, Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, Caleb, Herbert, and then everybody above. No questions asked.
Yep.
All right, let's dig up one more here. And I know we have a question here. Drake May or CJ Stroud? 14 teams, start 10.
I have Stroud ranked higher. Mitchell would probably say May, right? Where you be the tiebreaker, JB?
I have him in the same tier. I'm going to give a cop-out answer. If it's +6 for a passing touchdown, give me Stroud. If it's +4, give me May.
Yeah.
Because May's going to give you a little bit more rushing upside than Stroud.
They just need the weapons. They're not all the way there yet. I love Kyle Williams, but that's not enough to say I want Drake May over a Stroud with the receivers that he has.
And then Clint coming in hot, Bo Nix over both of them. I have them all tiered together. If Clint is saying, give me Bo Nix, I wouldn't fight you. Dan, if you're saying, give me CJ Stroud, I wouldn't fight you. But then you look at me and you're like, JB, you shouldn't be trying to fight anybody. And that's true. That's true. All right, let me see here. There was one comment, and yeah, Monkey, I'm there. Stroud's just not a guy I'm targeting. Yeah, the price to acquire typically is not something I'm looking to do, because managers that have him absolutely love him. Dan, before we get to the final thoughts from Eskimo, send Derrick Henry, I'm assuming, Golden, and Hawkinson for Chase Brown and Achane in a 14x12. So Derrick Henry, Matthew Golden, and Hawkinson for Chase Brown and Achane in a 14x12. super flex tight end premium.
Yeah, like when you look at a league that deep, 14 teams times 12 there, running back's probably a real thin position. So if you could get in their prime Chase Brown and Achan, I will take that side. And I like Matthew Golden over there, but I want those two young running backs versus the older Henry.
I'm going to go the running backs too. And I saw the wheel spinning, Dan, trying to do that 14 times 12 in your head. I saw the wheel spinning. All right. Again, I say this every single week, guys, but the chat was absolutely fantastic. The back and forth. And that's when you know you're talking about price points kind of where they should be, because you have one message saying, oh, it's absolutely this guy. And the very next, it's absolutely the other guy or the other package in the trade. So again, love the involvement. That's what makes this community so fantastic. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for the 291st time on Dynasty Theory. Dan, final thoughts. What do you got?
Man, the NFL releases its schedule on Wednesday. For me, that's where, hey, I'm going to look at dynasty bye weeks. That's a little roster management time, especially for the quarterback position and any position that I'm really thin in. I want to make sure those bye weeks isn't going to mess me up in the season. So I'll have some fun with that. And then also for Underdog Best Ball, they should be sponsoring the show. If they're not, listen, for Underdog Best Ball, I love the strategy piece that goes in with the late season playoff schedule. And it always ends up like there's this correlation with Dynasty is we're making trades late way through the year. All that time spent on studying the schedule later in the year, I have a good idea of when Dynasty playoffs come, if a guy has a little bit of extra value down the stretch. So look for the schedule release show on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm sure, the games are getting leaked out, and I know everybody's getting excited. I know you're excited over that Cowboys versus Shane's Eagles there for the opening game.
Excited if it works out good.
All right. For Mitch Sorensen, who, again, pivotal, essential to the state of Utah, Dan Lamagna, I'm John Bauer. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. Peace.